Good morning, everyone. Today is Wednesday, June 26, 2024, and we'd like to welcome everyone to the board meeting. We'll call this meeting to order at 9 a.m. The teleconference number is 971-254-3149, conference ID 866-914-607#. Audio capabilities are listen only and are offered on a best effort for the public. Our meeting is also live streamed, and you can join us online by going to our website or to tctvonline.com, click on live broadcasts. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone to mute your phones. You can do this by pressing *6. Please unmute your phone when your agenda item is ready to be discussed. For those joining via computer, please unmute your microphone and turn on your camera when your agenda item is called. All others must remain muted with their cameras turned off. Thank you. Public comment. Those intending to provide public comment to the board may attend in person or email submissions to the public comments email on our website. Public comments received by 12 p.m. on Tuesday will be distributed to the board, posted online before the meeting, and become part of the public record. You may also provide public comment virtually by registering ahead of time. To register, please email public comments by 12 p.m. on Tuesday prior to the board meeting. Public comments can also be mailed to the Board of Commissioners office at 201 Laurel Avenue, Tillamook, Oregon, 97141. For more information on public comment options, please visit the Board of Commissioners webpage. Do we have anyone signed up in the room, or has anyone registered online for public comments?
No, neither.
Okay, thank you. Well, we've called the meeting to order. I'll invite everyone to sign the guest list there by the door, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Olson, will you lead us, please?
I will. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. So we have one unscheduled agenda item which will be taken after item 6 on the agenda, and agenda items 17 and 18 have been postponed. So the first item, number 5, is consideration of a new outlet and limited on-premises sales, off-premises sales liquor license application for the Trask River RV and Grocery. This item is a consent calendar item. So we generally move to approve the consent calendar, and then we can discuss it, assuming it's seconded.
All right, then I will move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
And I would second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Well, thank you, Commissioner. I did read it. This is a small, fairly new store up the Trask River, and they have applied for an off-premises liquor license. And my understanding is that it has gone through the process, which is fairly comprehensive, as I understand it, and it has received approval all along the way, and the recommendation is to approve it and have it go forward. So I see no reason that, for my part in this, I would not approve it as well, recognizing there was some opposition. There were some signatures submitted, but there were also signatures in support of. So it may be a closer call than some, but I don't have any reason to question the process, nor the ones who have reviewed it in some detail and recommended approval.
Thank you. Commissioner Scar, do you have any discussion on this?
I would agree with my colleague that this is something that's driven by the OLCC process, and it appears that all of the boxes that need to be checked in the affirmative have been for the OLCC process. I know that there is some neighborhood concern, and I can appreciate neighborhood concern when you're bringing any alcohol serving premise into an area where there are homes and others around it. And I think that the license at this point asks if there have been issues in the past with the individual who is applying for the license, and the answer to that is no. So at this point, it meets, again, all of the requirements to receive the OLCC license. So I would be in support of that.
Thank you. As am I. And I'd like to announce for the record that I am friends with the applicant. And I don't think that, that I have a conflict in terms of voting because, as my colleagues have said, it is based on criteria. And we're not approving the license, we are moving it forward to OLCC. So would you concur with that, Bill?
I certainly would. You don't have an economic relationship with the applicant, so you
No.
don't have any conflict at all, Mary Faith.
Okay. All right, so it, just to my colleagues' points, we did receive public comments, we received comments from the applicant, and it's unusual in this process. In the 5 years I've been commissioner, we haven't had public comments for a consent agenda item like this, but we appreciate people weighing in, and as they said, people weighed in on both sides, but this is a process that's based on criteria. And the applicant met all the criteria.
So I'd like to mention one more thing, if I might. With regard to the sale of liquor, I know there's a share of our population that finds that something that they'd rather not see in America, Oregon, or in Tillamook County. But I would remind people that alcoholic beverages are a perfectly legal product, although the age is specified which you can consume or buy the product. But I also point out that the manufacture of certain spirits and beer and other products is a rather significant part of Oregon's economy. We have lots of microbreweries. We have, I think, a vodka producer in the Hood River area, and there are a few others. So to say that a legitimate business could not engage in the sale of a commercial product that is perfectly legal and in many ways promoted, I think, would also be a mistake. And so, as you point out, this is a consent agenda item, but with the signatures that came to us, I think the discussion that we've just had and the points are well taken for the record.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 6, consideration of a subaward agreement with Northwest Medical Foundation of Tillamook, doing business as Adventist Health Tillamook, for an opioid response program. And with us, we have Melody Ayers from Adventist Health Tillamook. Good morning, Melody. Thanks for joining us in person. Nice to see you.
I will give Bridget Hess's regrets. She has to be at a meeting in North Tillamook County, and it wasn't possible to be in both places at the same time. So on behalf of Adventist Health Tillamook, it has been our honor to lead the countywide opioid and substance use coalition that's been working to bring options, bring services, bring more opportunities for people to be able to choose a better way. And so that County of Tillamook received an award in the amount of $1 million from the Department of Justice last fall, BJA FY23 Comprehensive Opioid Stimulant and Substance Use Site-Based Program, COSUP for short. And it's been our honor to have been asked by the county to manage this grant on behalf of the county and to be able to keep all of our partners on the same page. For a music metaphor, let's keep singing the same song on the same page in the same key and working together to make a difference for those with substance use disorder and opioid use disorder in Tillamook County. And so the subaward is for 3 years. It goes back to January of this year and goes through September of 2026. And it is in the amount of, where are my notes? $417,424 for project management. And that is primarily for Bridget's time as the frontline project coordinator, my time to a certain extent as the project director, making sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed and that we've been communicating well and reporting timely to the county according to the grant required reporting timelines and deliverables. And the key focuses of this grant our prevention. We're looking at school prevention and other types of prevention that we'll be working with county partners, community partners on. Crisis intervention training is a big deal for the, mostly for our law enforcement, but we need to have that across all of our disciplines to be able to, again, with the music metaphor, sing from the same song on the same page and the same key and at close to the same measure. And so there are prevention, crisis intervention, and then a huge focus for the Department of Justice is deflection. How timely that the state of Oregon now has turned to looking at deflection as a key way to make sure that folks have choices and that not all of those choices land them in the criminal justice system, if it can be avoided. So just to say, because I know I've got law enforcement folks sitting behind me here, but deflection is there's a bright line here. Deflection seeks to keep as many folks out of the justice system as possible, to make those choices ahead of getting arrested, getting cited, getting any type of time assigned to them. So deflection is looking at how do we keep folks out of that system and direct them as quickly as possible to services. Once inside the justice system, then we have what's called diversion. And our county is very fortunate to already be on a good and strong start toward diversion programs where we can look at, okay, in our court system, okay, are folks able to maintain their sober living? Are they, is there ways that we can help to encourage that? Are there ways that we can do what's called contingency management and come alongside them and offer things that they need in order to get a job, keep a job? Something as simple as a bicycle to get to a job. And so between the three grants that Adventist Health is either the prime recipient or a manager of, we are working with all of our partners through the Our Tillamook Consortium to say, how can we best support the best possible health of the residents and the folks in our community? And so we're honored to be asked to do this. This consideration that is before you is all the formalities, the paperwork. The attorneys on both sides have looked at everything, and it is within what has been approved by the DOJ in the grant budget that was initially approved. And so that's my, as short as I can make it, speech. And if you have any questions, I'd be delighted to answer those.
Thank you. Erin, do you have any questions or comments for Melody?
No questions, just, the quick comment that the Our Tillamook Consortium was created, I think about 5 years ago, maybe even a little bit longer ago
6.
than that. 6 years ago, and has been working in this arena in Tillamook County. And the COSIP grant is a way to continue that work moving forward. We're excited to do a sort of look back at what we've achieved in our prior work and to do some significant planning for probably the next 3 years for our upcoming work. So it's great that we have Adventist Health, who is willing and skilled partner in engaging with us to be the program managers for this work. There are a lot of partners involved, and everybody's exceptionally busy pedaling as fast as they can. And Adventist Health has been able to add the capacity with the grant funding to keep us all moving together. So just really appreciate that and look forward to diving in more deeply this fall to our upcoming planning.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Well, thank you, Commissioner. I claim no particular expertise in deflection and some of the other programs, but I am familiar with how it's supposed to work, and I recognize that some of our counties in Oregon evidently have not followed through on that, if you believe the press. But I'm very pleased that here in Tillamook County that Adventist Health has stepped up as they have done so many times. And having sat on that board for a number of years, I have full confidence in the hospital and the people who work there. And I know, Commissioner, you had a relationship with the hospital as well. And so I'm very comfortable going forward and hope for the best, because the people who are in that system need professional help, and if they're willing to get it, it's there. And so I can't think of a better partner than our local hospital and the medical professionals there to do it. So I'm absolutely in support of making this work.
Thank you. As it might, and I'm very grateful for the Adventist Health Tillamook partnership because it might, in other communities, it might seem out of the ordinary for a hospital or a healthcare system to be taking on this work, and it speaks to the partnership of Adventist Health Tillamook that you all have consistently stepped in to help fill the gaps and the needs of the community when you can, and it's deeply, deeply appreciated. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, with that, I think we're ready for a motion.
All right, Madam Chair, I would move consideration of a subword agreement with Northwest Medical Foundation of Tillamook doing business as Adventist Health Tillamook for an opioid response program.
And I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Melody.
You are welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Now we have excuse me, unscheduled item, which is consideration of a professional services agreement with Lincoln County for juvenile shelter services. With us, we have Matt Tennell, Director of the Juvenile Department. Good morning.
Good morning. First of all, I want to just thank everybody in the Commissioner's office for getting me on this morning because this contract just came to me yesterday, and Joel and Rachel were able to review it right away. And this wouldn't ordinarily be a time-sensitive issue, except we have a youth that's placed at the shelter right now, and the current contract expires on the 30th. So very quickly, what you've got in front of you is a renewal of a contract that we've had with Lincoln County for quite a while for access to their shelter program. And for those who don't know, a juvenile shelter is a setting for kids involved in the juvenile justice system they can't be at home and aren't appropriate for detention either. It's a detention alternative for kids that can't be at home for a variety of reasons. And I think the only significant change to this contract from the previous one is the daily rate. And, the daily rate for services like this, detention, programming, and all of those other types of things has just gone up over the last several years. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but I'm also trying to keep this short and sweet since I wasn't supposed to be on the agenda in the first place.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Matt. I was happy to, when we talked about this yesterday, happy to fit it in as an unscheduled item. We generally don't have unscheduled items just because people who are reviewing the agenda online, like to look at and see in advance what's going to be on it. But this was a special circumstance, as you said, because the contract is up on the 30th and you just got it yesterday, and we have a youth in custody at that facility. So it makes perfect sense to do this today, and I'm fully supportive. Commissioner?
Thank you. Yes, I would support as well. And as I understand it from your explanation, this is essentially rolling over what is in existence now. And so,
That's correct.
and also my understanding is that's been successful and working, and no reason to change or modify significantly. So I would be in support of taking it forward. What is the time period on this? I didn't get that.
This one begins July 1st and goes through June 30th of 2026, so it would be a 2-year contract.
So just a fiscal year, the full fiscal year?
Two.
Oh, two, I beg
Two
your pardon,
fiscal
yes.
years.
Okay, 2 years. Okay, yes, I would be in support of that as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Scar?
I'm in support. We appreciate the partnership as we don't have our own facility. And the only way that this really works in our smaller rural communities is by partnership. So we definitely need to renew our contract.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, in consideration of a professional services agreement with Lincoln County for juvenile shelter services, I move approval.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you very much again.
You're welcome. Item 7 is consideration of an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Garibaldi and Tillamook County Sheriff's Office for Law Enforcement Services. With us, we have Under Sheriff Kelly. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Before you is renewal of our contract with the City of Garibaldi. It's been probably one of our longest contracts we've had with the sheriff's office. They provide the funding for one deputy, that's currently filled by Deputy Terrence Waters. It's pretty standard that we've had contract. There is one minor change. The city's had some issues with getting a vehicle like any other department in the county. So we're allowing them, the Garibaldi deputy, in past, they would provide the vehicle for the deputy to use. But we're going to allow them to use one of our vehicles, but there is going to be compensation, and we're using the IRS formula for that, and they'll reimburse it at that rate each month. So that's all I have on that, and unless you all have any questions.
Thank you. You have any questions, Commissioner?
No, thank you. I really don't. I understand that your service with Garibaldi and other incorporated communities has been, I guess, a very workable arrangement over the years, and you're saying this continues on, and the only significant change is where does a vehicle come from and who pays for it? So I can't think of a reason this wouldn't make sense to continue, so I do support this.
Thank you.
And just some clarification, the city does intend to purchase a vehicle. It's on their agenda, it's on their budget, they want to do it. This is just a Band-Aid until they can
Maybe
get that.
they got in the queue of a 36-month wait for vehicles.
It's a lot of things. There was, they have some issues with personnel. Vehicle was ordered, wasn't ordered, was ordered, wasn't ordered, and then the issue with just getting a vehicle when you do order it. So it's a Band-Aid. Their still long-range plan is to purchase vehicle, and it would be their responsibility, and that deputy would drive
So
that.
let me follow up with that then, if I might. If you, Tillamook County, if the sheriff's office can furnish a deputy and a vehicle, why would they need a vehicle?
It's a preference, and I don't know, it's a preference to the city, because Rockaway is different. They don't want to do that. They want to. They provide a lump sum per deputy each year to account for the sheriff's office to do that. But Garibaldi's always wanted their vehicle with a different kind of a logo on it. I think it gives some sense of ownership, I guess, and so.
Well, just curious, and obviously it's their call. I'm just wondering why it's one way here and another there.
Yeah, I agree, but that's what they wanted, and I think we can accommodate it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Scar?
No questions, thank you. Long-term contract, it makes sense. And our small cities, I know, have struggled to maintain their own police departments. It's a challenging thing. And so the partnership with the sheriff's department just makes good sense. So I'm in support.
As am I. Thank you. I think we're ready for a motion.
All right, thank you. In consideration of an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Garibaldi and Tillamook County Sheriff's Office for Law Enforcement Services, I move approval.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. All right. Moving on to item 8, consideration of amendment number 2 to intergovernmental agreement number 6117 between the City of Rockaway Beach and the Tillamook County Sheriff's Office for Law Enforcement Services.
Like I mentioned, this is just the renewal of our contract with the City of Rockaway, which is one of our newest contracts that the Sheriff's Office has. No change in it. The only difference between it and Rockaway is, like I mentioned, they provide a $10,000 for each deputy each year. And so the idea is that within 4 or 5 years, that the county would have that money to purchase vehicles. To replace them as they go. An interesting thing, when we took over that contract, the City of Rockaway's department was dissolved, and they gave us all their equipment and vehicles, and we're still operating those vehicles now as deputies are using them now. So as they get worn out and have to be replaced, we would have that money available to purchase and replace those vehicles.
Terrific. Thank you. Commissioner?
Well, thank you. Well, then I guess we're talking about the same thing, and no questions there that I can think of. Well, there is one. I guess if you look, let's go outside Tillamook County where there is a county and a number of smaller cities. Is this typical across Oregon? I know I've heard of some, but could you cite a few examples elsewhere?
It's very typical. I think Commissioner Scar was talking about that. It is, my personal opinion, I think it's going to be extremely rare that you're going to find the small town police department anymore. It's just too expensive for a small municipality to fund a police department. Their costs are the same from small Garibaldi to Oregon State Police. The equipment and all that stuff is very, very expensive. So Washington County has several contracts throughout there. I would be surprised if just about every county doesn't have a small municipality contract providing law enforcement services.
Yeah. Well, that certainly makes sense, so thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Scar?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. We don't have a contract with Bay City, do we?
We don't. We've had them sporadically, and it's funding. I mean, even it's still expensive for these cities to pay our fees, which they get a deal because every contract, one thing I always hear in contracts, well, you're charging the city a lot of money for this deputy or these deputies. We don't ever recoup every penny. There's trainings and different things. There's be some that the county has to pay for. It's minor, very minor, and the benefits we get for it. But yes, Bay City, we've had a contract for a full deputy, and times we've had a contract for a part-time deputy, but it's just depending on, I know they have a desire, it's depending on if they have the funds to do it.
Thank you. I was just wondering because I was going down the cities in my mind, and Manzanita has their own police department, and I think Nehalem and Wheeler contract with Manzanita.
Yes, they contract for a certain amount of hours and a certain amount of services, but they don't respond to calls very often. But like I think Wheeler has a contract to work so many hours of traffic a month within the city limits. I think Nehalem has a small contract to patrol, to be a deterrent kind of thing.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Interesting. Thank you. I think we're ready for a motion.
Commissioner Scar didn't have anything to add, I guess. Yes. All right. In consideration of amendment number 2 to intergovernmental agreement number 6117 between the City of Rockaway Beach and Tillamook County Sheriff's Office for law enforcement services, I would move approval.
And I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Item 9 is consideration of a professional services agreement number 24-25-001 with Tillamook Family Dentistry for federally qualified health center, Oregon Health Plan, Medicaid, and non-insured dental services. With us, we have Marlene Putman, Director of Health and Human Services. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioner. Yes, so this is the annual renewal of our agreement with Tillamook Family Dentistry, who's been working with us, I'm thinking it's 6 years now, to contract and provide dental services for, as in the title, our Medicaid and uninsured dental patients who live in Tillamook County. We appreciate this partnership and the willingness of this dentist and others to work with us for a negotiated rate of reimbursement, which is slightly higher than the Medicaid reimbursement rate in terms of providing some incentive for those dentists to be involved, including in this case, Tillamook Family Dentistry and Dr. On. So this agreement is in substance the same with the exception of the increased rate of reimbursement in this new contract. We have not increased the rate since we started these agreements with our partner dentists. There was a request the last 2 years for an increase, and recognizing that cost of living, the cost of supplies, the cost of staff, and a huge increase in the salary for dentists, hygienists, and dental assistants have impacted their ability to work. So we made an increase of 15% from when some of them started 8 years ago, but I think his started 6 years ago across the board for each one of these ranges of pay or reimbursement for dental visits. So you'll see in item 2 of the agreement, price and amount, there are bulleted items with ranges of patients served and amounts of reimbursement. So again, those are indicated across the board. The services that are provided are those within scope of Medicaid services. So even for our uninsured patients, we use the same scope of service for those that are provided in our dental office and with our partner dentists. If we need to, we refer out for specialty services. Some of those, most of those are outside of Tillamook County, but our care coordinators assist and provide interpretation to ensure patients can access those specialty services if needed. So this agreement again is our annual agreement, which runs from, looking to make sure I got the start date here, July 1 of 2024 through June 30 of 2025. And that's a summary for you all. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Starr?
No questions. I think we talk about this each time we renew the dental contracts, how much we appreciate our local dentists that do partner with us. Dental care is such a crucial part of healthcare. And there are it's a limited capacity in Tillamook County. So even operating our own dental clinic as a part of our health clinics, we can't serve everyone that is in need. So we appreciate our partners. So I completely understand the need for an increase. I think every contract coming before us right now is looking at an increase to deal with what has happened in the world with inflation. So I just appreciate our dentists continuing to work with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson?
Thank you. My only question, Marlene, how many health departments, and I know they're organized a bit differently and structurally from counties across Oregon and elsewhere, how many offer dental services as a routine part of medical care?
So public health departments do not. For public health departments that have an integrated federally qualified health center, there are 8 merging on 10 with lookalikes now. So Multnomah County does, Clackamas County does. I'm not sure about Lincoln County. So I don't know the specifics of how many of them actually provide dental services. It's a growing trend. I can look specifically and ask our primary care association to give me a little bit more detail too, or just reach out to those partners. But there are some in this unique category of public federally qualified health centers that do. My estimate would be half. And I can, again, look and give you actual numbers. Send that back to all of you.
That's not necessary. I knew that there were some that did and some didn't, or there was kind of not a case by case, but there were not every county has that full service, I guess was what I was after. And you verified what I think I already knew, but no, I don't need precise numbers. I guess the only follow-up question I would have, and I think you answered it, is it a growing trend? In other words, a few years from now, there'll probably be more dental services available through the system. Is that a fair statement?
I think so, because of the increased demand for services and the need to provide these as part of the Oregon Health Authority metrics now. So there's both the need and recognition from individuals and the state that this is an important service. The federally qualified health centers that are not associated with public health are also adding more dental services. Part of the reason why we, as a federally qualified health center and public health department in the county, are providing dental services is because there's no other dental provider in the county. And the needs assessment indicated that it was important for this population that we serve this community, and had support from Columbia Pacific, our board, and the commissioners to do so.
Thank you. That's good answers, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. I am also in support, and I echo my fellow commissioners' thoughts about just how grateful I am that we're able to provide dental services in Tillamook County to uninsured folks and people who are on the Medicaid plan. it's, there was a time when Tillamook was known for people having a lack of dental care, and that really has turned around. And so I think largely due to your work and the work of the dentists in our area who participate in this plan. So I'm deeply grateful for that. And I think we're ready for a motion.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. In consideration of a professional services agreement number 2425001 with Tillamook Family Dentistry for federally qualified health center, Oregon Health Plan medical, and non-insured dental services, I move approval.
I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Okay, moving on to item 10, consideration of modification number 1 to personal services agreement number 23/24-021 with Corinne Weiss for consultant interim communications manager services. Marlene.
Yes, we have been contracting with Corinne for 6 months and almost, and we're looking to extend that contract for another 6. She has been assisting the department with our needs for communication, both internal and external. We've been working on improving our internal communications plan, I'm trying to think what she calls it. We have a landing platform for requests from staff, but also just the terminology to make sure we use consistent terminology, branding, if you will, requests that have the same type of format, the same type of language, literacy level, different languages that we translate items into. So all of our staff can easily access and see what those protocol and requirements are and how to make a request if they think we should be providing information to the public or providing information internally. She's also assisting us with updating our monthly topics, those that we identify for the public and that we feature on radio and social media and on internal newsletters and postings for our staff and patients. So we are in process of approving a communications manager updated job description and reposting that again. So you should see that soon. But in the interim, in this next 6 months as well, she'll be assisting us to clearly define those and to help, hopefully, in creating that position and supporting a new person in the role. So this extends, as I said, the contract for 6 months through December 31st of 2024, and the contract amount from $24,750 to $49,500. This has been reviewed by legal counsel and discussed with staff to ensure we have the right process in place, and now it's before you. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Scar?
Thank you. Thank you, Marlene. I know this has been one of the challenges that's been ongoing as we have found with hiring and trying to find the right people for just key necessary positions. I know we would prefer to have a communications manager on staff, so I'm excited to have that review of the job description and the chance to hopefully get that reopened and hope that the right person is out there and they are currently at liberty to join us. So fingers crossed. In the meantime, I know that having Corinne Services has been very important. Communications coming out of the health department during COVID. Boy, there was a lot of growth and a lot of expansion as to how we reached out to the public. We learned a lot, and we need to continue that work as well as how we communicate in the clinic. And I think that was just an interesting piece, Marlene, as you were talking about it, that I wasn't aware that we were doing as much internally, but it makes so much sense because our staff do need to have that common language with which, they are using with patients, et cetera. So important position, and certainly hopeful we'll find the right person long-term, but appreciate the contract in the meantime. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Oh, thank you. As I understand it, your current situation is Corinne West, Miss Weiss is on she's an independent contractor. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then separately from that, you're looking at bringing on a staff position that would serve as a public information officer of some sort. Is that?
Yes, that they would take on at least a portion of the PIO role from me, and not necessarily all of it from our public health officer, but yes, and then they would serve as the manager for the staff who are working on communications. We have 2 other contracts that are creating content, so yeah.
Okay, well, you certainly, your department certainly has a need to have interchange with the public, as does the sheriff's office. And I think we've talked about this at the county level. I think at some point there needs to be, just my opinion, a PIO for the county as a whole, simply because an awful lot of people want to know what's going on, and not only want to, but need to, particularly when there are difficulties like flooding and landslides and all the things that happen here. And we have several people doing that, and maybe centralization would make some sense at some point. But with respect to what you're doing today, I'm certainly very comfortable with what's been said.
Terrific. As am I, and I appreciate Corinne's services. You were just talking about the external communication to the community about the monthly, June is National something something month, which obviously I've already forgotten. But I hear those every week, and I really appreciate them. She's doing a good job.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think we're ready for a motion.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. In consideration of modification number 1 to Personal Services Agreement number 2324-021 with Corrine Weiss for Consultant Interim Communication Manager Services, I move approval.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Okay. We have one more with you, Marlene. Consideration of amendment number 9 to Oregon Health Authority amended and restated 2023 to 2025 intergovernmental agreement number 180028 for the financing of public health services. Marlene.
Yes, so as you are familiar now, the Oregon Health Authority sends out amendments over the course of the biennium. So the biennium starts in 2023 and runs through 2025, and the funds are appropriated by the legislature for the biennium and also throughout. Sometimes there's changes which result in amendments to this contract. This amendment pertains to the second year of the biennium, which starts July 1, 2024 and runs through June 30 of 2025. So you will likely see further amendments. This amendment number 9 pertains to the allocation of funding for, as I said, the upcoming fiscal year, starting July 1. It includes what are called program elements. Not all of them are included. You have seen the long list and pages of those program elements. So this doesn't include them all, but does include some, including the award amount, with a current balance of the award of $769,688.86, as described in Exhibit C, which is on page 82 of this document. This, again, just delineates in the detail what the program elements are and what our responsibilities are for meeting those, along with the reported work plans. We do monthly and quarterly budget and program reports for each one of these program elements, ranging from things such as communicable disease, home visiting services, emergency preparedness and response, and maternal and child health. So that's just to give you a flavor of what those services are that you often hear about in public health. So that's the summary for now. You may have noted that there was not an amendment number 8 before you. That will likely come after amendment 9 that will still pertain to the first year of the biennium. So just to let you know, in case you are noting that there was a gap. So this agreement, again, for 1 year funding for program elements, likely to see amendments coming in the next couple months.
Thank you. Commissioner Scar?
This is one of those contracts that is as expected, right? We are the public health authority for Tillamook County, and so the funding coming from the state, we don't get to go to them and say, here's what we'd really like to do, and here's what it would cost us. Instead, I think they simply say, here's what we'll give you, and do these things with it. So it's a little bit of a sort of backward grant process, but we appreciate the opportunity to get the funding through the state, and amendments are par for the course. So thank you, Marlene, to you and all of your staff for all that you do with the funding we receive.
Commissioner?
Thank you. This sounds to me just like it's a foundational document. It's basically a good part of what the health department does and has been doing for some time and will do into the future. So I have no questions. I'm assuming everything is in order, and if not, we would have heard about it. So absolutely, let's keep it going.
Likewise, I agree. I think we're ready for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In consideration of amendment number 9 to Oregon Health Authority amended and restated 2023-2025, intergovernmental agreement number 180028 for the financing of public health services, I move approval.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Marlene.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. All right, item 12 is consideration of modification number 12 to Personal Services Agreement number 4334 with Helion Software, Inc. for ORCATS and assessment software license, maintenance, and support. And with us, we have Cassandra Larson, Chief Deputy Assessor. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Again, I'm Cassandra Larson, Chief Deputy Assessor and Tax Collector with the Assessment and Taxation Department. Before you today, I have our professional services agreement with Helion Software. Helion Software, we've been in contract with them for almost 24 years. They provide 35 programs which support our valuation and taxation processes. Helion is used in 20 out of the 36 counties and is also used in the Tillamook County Clerk's Office. We have a good, long-standing working relationship with Helion, and it's one we'd like to continue. So, any questions?
Commissioner?
Thank you. No, I have no questions. I'm somewhat familiar with that, knowing what you do and the clerk's office as well. And I think we should change her title to Assessor-elect now that she's officially in that period, at which time then she'll become the assessor January 2nd. So no, I'm very good with that, and I understand there's a pretty strong history of success with Helion across the state, as she pointed out, and so let's keep that going as well. And without that sort of thing, would be much more difficult in that office. There are how many properties now? About 29,000.
Yes. Yeah.
And they're on a cycle, and without the software to back it up, we'd need a whole lot more of pens and pencils, I guess, and paper.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Scar?
Just thank you, Cassandra. I know that Helion is definitely a key piece of keeping our workflow in order. So obviously having this makes great sense, and I'm in support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, this may be the first time you've been before us since the election, so I want to say congratulations.
Yeah.
And my colleague here is absolutely right. Assessor-elect should be your title, so congratulations.
Thank you very much. I look forward to serving Tillamook County.
Well, we look forward to working with you in that capacity. I certainly support this. I know Helion is extremely important to your office and to the clerk's office, and it's just essential to doing business. So I certainly support this motion. And I have a random question for you after we vote on this, if you'll hang around for a second. All right, I think we're ready for a motion.
Thank you. Madam Chair, in consideration of modification number 12 to Personal Services Agreement number 4334 with Helion Software Incorporated for ORCATS and assessment software license, maintenance, and support, I move approval.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Okay, so the other day I took a call from someone who wanted to know what what percentage of taxable property in Tillamook County is owned by the dairy industry, by ag specifically, and what that revenue is, what that tax revenue is? And I said, of course, I have no idea, but I'll ask Cassandra. So, you know, I know you can't pull this out of your hat right now, but if you would be willing to, in your leisure.
Yeah, no, we have it on a chart right in our office.
Oh,
And so
good.
of
Okay,
course I'm
good.
put on the spot and I'm going, what percentage is that? Because I present it to you every year. So I can go get it and send you an email. But yeah, of course we have that data ready and available, but you
Excellent.
know, of course, when you're put on the spot, it's hard to pull it out.
And I didn't think to ask you in advance, so yeah, so,
So it's just farm?
yes,
Okay,
yeah, yeah. Thank you so much.
all right.
All right. Okay, item 13 is consideration of the adoption of county pay tables for AFSCME, non-represented, executive service, elected officials, and healthcare providers effective July 1, 2024. And with us, we have Jody Wilson, Director of Human Services.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is the official pay plan to adopt the new salary tables for the collective bargaining agreement for AFSCME. It's also including the COLA that we discussed for non-reps, our elected officials, that was approved by the Elected Official Compensation Committee. And then, I'm gonna forget one, the executive service. What it does not include is Teamsters, which is currently under bargaining. Our part-time pay plan, only because there are deputies that are reflected in the part-time pay plan, and that's going to impact Teamsters. And the justice facility. Again, historically, we have followed the Teamsters contract for our justice facilities. Once we resolve that contract, there'll be more dialogue as to what would be applied. So I will be back with those three pay schedules as soon as we have some updates of where we are on that Teamsters agreement.
Terrific, thank you. I just misspoke when I introduced you. I said you're the Director of Human Services, but of course, that's the Director of Human Resources, so you're welcome. Commissioner Scar?
No, this is just part of the process of keeping our staff paid as we have agreed in our contracts and as we have in our standard procedure to follow the AFSCME for the other group. So I appreciate Jody bringing it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Well, thank you. I support what we're being asked to consider this morning, and I've had a number of conversations with Jody, just in as our routine conversations on a variety of subjects, so I'm fairly familiar with what's happening, and I guess my comment on wages and salaries and other personnel expenses are, we're a large employer. We're one of the larger employers in Tillamook County. And as such, you know, we have a lot of people looking for employment. But to get the people that we want, I think it's very important that we be competitive, and not with other counties across Oregon, but other employers as well. And I've learned over the years that if you don't pay someone at market rates or very close, you soon lose that individual, and you tend to lose those maybe with the more experience and the better employees. They go elsewhere, and then if your salary is not where it should be, you have difficulties bringing in new hires. So it's a two-edged sword, and so what we're doing here, to me, is how you run an organization. You simply keep the people side of it fair and equitable across the board, or you lose good people, and if you lose good people or people at all, the organization suffers, which means the people of Tillamook County suffer. So it's, you know, it's not quite as simple as I hold it out to be, but in some ways it is. You must pay people what they're worth, what they bring to the organization. So that's how I view pay tables, and they do adjust from time to time, and we're all caught in an inflationary environment. And but if you do the wrong thing for the wrong reasons to the people who actually make things happen, we're opening the door to a whole lot more problems than we ever would have otherwise. So that's my lecture of the morning, and maybe not, I may have another one too, but so I'm certainly in support of that, and I appreciate what Jody has done, and I've also been following the negotiations with Teamsters, and I think that's moving forward with reasonable people on both sides, and we'll get there sooner than later. So absolutely, I will support this.
Thank you. Well stated. I appreciate your comments. I agree with them. I just want to say that we have excellent employees, do excellent work, and they deserve to be paid fairly, and it's incumbent upon us to retain the good people we have. So with that, I think we're ready for a motion.
All right, Madam Chair, in consideration of the adoption of county pay tables for ASME, non-represented, executive service, elected officials, and healthcare providers effective July 1, 2024, I move approval.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. And I would like to also continue to commend you for the work even prior to my arrival of creating the compensation philosophy. That tool has been very valuable in charting the course and bringing our employees to market. And it takes a little bit of the art out and creates a science for looking at what our market is. So it has made my work a lot simpler. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item 14, consideration of a First Amendment to a commercial lease with Fiber Federal Credit Union for property located at 1510B 3rd Street in Tillamook, Oregon. We have online Sarah Absher, Director of the Department of Community Development. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you. So yes, every 5 years, we look at renewing our lease with TLC Fiber Federal Credit Union. We moved over here towards the end of 2009. And so we are in the next cycle for a 5-year lease agreement. Before you requesting signature for that today, there is an incremental increase each year, which we did anticipate. I believe it is roughly 5%, which is actually less of an incremental increase each year than what we had in our last lease agreement. So I am pleased to share that actually we anticipated a higher incremental increase. So good news there. As part of the lease agreement with TLC Fiber Federal Credit Union, the county surveyor's office shares costs for paying this lease because they are over here with us as well. And the building division, which is a special revenue fund, also helps pay for the lease. So there's only a portion, roughly 2/3 of this that comes out of the general fund, and then the rest of the lease cost is paid through special revenue funds. So that's also a good thing, being conscientious of the finances of our general fund. So that includes all of our furniture and a lot of what we use over here to operate our offices and provide our services. So very routine. It's an amendment. There is an opt-out clause if we ever needed that, that is in the original agreement, and that is also referenced still in this 5-year lease agreement. So before you, just asking for signature today.
Thank you. Commissioner Scar?
Thank you. And thank you, Sarah. Appreciate this. We talk a little bit about, have been talking actually quite a bit about our courthouse, our 1932 building, which it just no longer has capacity. And so I think this is one of those pieces. Back in 2009, as we had outgrown our space, that community development and the surveyor's office and the building division were the ones that were then pushed out, if you will, and find themselves over at TLC. So I think this is an important part of the broader conversation as we talk about space for circuit court going forward. We're talking about space in general. The county services have continued to grow, and I know, Sarah, that you guys are even now a bit packed into that space. So we appreciate your willingness to continue to stay shoulder to shoulder in there. As we all know, space in Tillamook County is at a premium. Office space is not something we have a lot of, and we're happy that we have good space for you, but realize that it's a bit tight. So thank you, and thank you for working through the negotiation of this lease. Appreciate it.
Commissioner?
Thank you. Sarah, you mentioned the opt-out. Could you be a little more specific? In other words, you're into this now for 10 years and you want another 5. And let's say that 2 years out, circumstances change and maybe the courts are relocated or who knows. and there's an opportunity for you to move, or maybe the surveyor, how much notice do you have to give, and are there any penalties or consequences other than just some form of notice?
So Commissioner, thank you. I knew that question was coming and I was actually scrambling to try to find that information. I believe it's 30 days, and this is where we would negotiate that opt-out agreement for whatever payment that TLC Fiber Federal would want for the remainder of that lease, and would work with County Council to do that.
So
But I would.
yeah, thank you. That answers it, except every lease I've done, and I've done quite a few over the years, you tend to, you probably want to get that in writing up front so that you're not negotiating something from a position of weakness, meaning you want to leave and they don't want you to leave, and you're beholden to them. You know, so business is business. So is there a way that you could get that, or maybe get an addendum in the fairly near future? And I'm just thinking out a few years, you know, I think a lot of people are aware some of the space considerations and options are in flux at the county. And if something did materialize, it would be nice to have a path forward that has certain parameters. Does that make sense?
It does, Commissioner, and that is in the original lease agreement. I would just have to go back and pull it out. I can send that to you. I know it is there. We have not anticipated until very recently looking at the probability or possibility that the department could be moving within the next 5 to 10 years, especially with the courthouse renovations and relocation of circuit court. In my conversations with chief of staff, so we did have a brief conversation about this and the likelihood of that happening over these next 5 years. We feel confident that the lease as it is written for the next 5 years is sufficient, but that this is definitely something we will want to take a closer look at when 2029 approaches. So that ability to terminate the lease and the provisions to do that are in the initial lease agreement, and I can send that to you. I know County Council is aware of that as well. And then I think as we approach 2029 and seeing what's happening throughout the county, that's where we're definitely going to want to take another look at that.
Okay, well, thank you. I think that would be of interest to me, and I would say for the record too, your landlord, the credit union, which is now Fiber, but before that was TLC, has, in my judgment, been an absolute stellar and magnificent partner to a lot of people and organizations in Tillamook County. I recall when the fairgrounds needed new bleachers, they were essentially condemned with a 1-year grace period. There was a need for $750,000 to put in the new grandstands. TLC stepped forward, presented an option to have $750,000 repaid over 10 years at 0 interest. And I have always remembered that. If there ever was a civic organization that said, we're going to do our part, boy, that was them. And so you have a wonderful landlord, and I'm sure there's an equitable way forward. I just am more comfortable when that real estate matters are in writing, because you want to have those questions answered prior to, if you can. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
I am fully supportive, and I think we're ready for a motion.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. In consideration of a First Amendment to commercial lease with Fiber Federal Credit Union for property located at 1510B 3rd Street, Tillamook, Oregon, I would move approval.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Item 15 is consideration of change order number 2 to contract number 6249, contract for general services with Dairy Compost, Inc. for processing of yard waste into a marketable product. With us, we have Justin Weiss, excuse me, Program Manager at Tillamook County Solid Waste. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Nice to see you this morning.
Nice
So,
to see you
yes,
too.
today-
Any relation to Corinne Weiss?
Corinne, yeah, we had Weiss. Yeah, actually Weiss, I
Okay.
both growing up. It's the German, but yeah, I don't know. There's not a ton of us out there, but yeah.
Okay.
Maybe a long lost cousin, yeah, who knows? So, yeah, today, before you have change order 2 for the contract between Dairy Compost and Tillamook County. So this will be for the new fiscal year. As we've seen with a lot of the other contracts, as mentioned by, I think, Commissioner Scar, we're seeing increases across the board with a lot of the rates. So we are asking for per the agreements, 80% of CPI for inflation. So we're at about $1 increase. We'll be going from, this is a per ton rate, from $35.33 to $36.37 per ton. Dairy Compost takes all of our collected yard debris. Back about 2013, I believe, when the ODF program started, they were looking for an outlet to actually get rid of that yard debris. And so a lot of the yard debris collected does go into the manure feed that Dairy Compost has. They add in the green feed, and that produces quite a good product that's used here locally for a lot of the dairy farms. So the 36.37 per ton rate is about a third of what we do charge for disposal, so it is subsidized within our disposal fees. And they are doing good work moving a lot of the product locally and across the state of Oregon. So we'd like to contract with them for another year to continue their services. So happy to answer any questions if you do have any.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson?
I don't really have any questions. It seemed, again, pretty straightforward, and we know, I've been to their meetings, and I know what the various contractors are proposing and what sort of obstacles and cost increases they're facing, and so that's the world we're living in, so okay, let's get it done.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Scar?
I agree. Thank you. Let's get it done.
All right, I am supportive also, so we're ready for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In consideration of change order number 2 to contract number 6249, contract for general services with Dairy Compost Incorporated for processing of yard waste into a markable product, I move approval.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks for being with us in person. Item 16 is consideration of an order in the matter of designating a newspaper for the publication of the 2024 Tillamook County Property Tax Foreclosure List. William Sargent, County Counsel.
Thank you, Commissioner. Every year in August, I, on behalf of the county, file a complaint in the circuit court. It's actually called an application for judgment and decree and foreclosure, where we assert that the property owners who are listed as defendants in that case have not paid taxes on their properties for 3 or more years. And due process requires that if you're going to sue somebody, you probably ought to give them an opportunity to know that you're suing them and to respond. And the way that that happens in this case is by way of publishing their names in the newspaper. That's not the only way, by the way. The Cassandra's office gives them certified mailings, and they're well aware of this happening anyway. So they get listed in the newspaper, and one of the things that we have to do in order to get to that point is to designate a newspaper for publication, and that is, I think, the only one that qualifies in the county is the Headlight Herald. So this order designates the Headlight Herald as the newspaper for giving notice of the institution of that action.
Thank you. And I believe it has been for maybe ever.
I was thinking as long as I've been here, it has been.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Questions?
Oh, thank you. No, I have no questions on the process. I guess I would just offer an observation that I think the Tillamook County is fortunate that we have the Headlight Herald and a couple of other publications as well, simply because newspapers aren't doing all that well these days across America, and I see just in the recent last couple of weeks, there's 3 or 4 more in Eastern Oregon that are either modifying their publication or ceasing altogether. I think one in Hermiston and maybe Baker City and a couple of others, and that's a troubling trend. So I'm hoping this doesn't come into Tillamook County, because I like newspapers. I like to hold it and get my fingers dirty with newsprint ink. But aside from that, one other question for council. This relates to what you're asking today is for the property tax foreclosure list. Are not they also designated as a newspaper of record in terms of publishing invitations to bid and that sort of thing, or is that separate?
Typically not. That typically, I think, goes in the Journal of.
Daily Journal of Commerce?
Yes.
Okay, so they are designated on the record as well then?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Not in this instance.
No, but in like, if you want to buy a new road grader, something, you put it in the Daily Journal of Commerce, which has been the newspaper of choice for as long as I can remember, 40 years or better. So I'm just curious, and so they're not designated here, even though we can choose to advertise here as well?
Sure.
Okay, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Scar?
No, I think we're all sort of, we are all happy we have the Headlight Herald and are all feeling a bit of trepidation as different papers fail as to what that would look like for Tillamook County if we did not have a local publication. It's our understanding, I think, from conversations we've had before, that the online publications don't qualify for this designation and would not for other designations as well, such as notification of budget hearings and other things that we're required to do. So we certainly hope that the Headlight Herald flourishes and continues to be available for us, and certainly makes sense at this point to designate it as our paper of record. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree with both of my colleagues, and I having worked for the Headlight Herald, I have a special place for it in my heart, but also I deeply value it as the keeper of the historic record of our community and our county. You can go to the Headlight Herald office and look at the bound copies of newspapers from 100 years ago, so it really is, that's where the history of our county is. And so I also hope that it continues. And I think we're ready for a motion.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. In consideration of an order 24-036 in the matter of designating a newspaper for the publication of the 2024 Tillamook County Property Tax Foreclosure List, I move approval.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Oops. Thank you. Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome.
Items 17 and 18 have been postponed. We're on to item 19, which is consideration of a professional services agreement with William K. Sargent for legal services. And we have Isabel Gilda, Executive Assistant to the Commissioner's Office, joining us remotely. Good morning, Isabel.
Good morning. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay, I have my headset on, so thank you. As you announced, we have a personal services agreement with the William K. Sargent for legal services. This is a contract extension for 1 year. It's our second year of contracting with Mr. Sargent. And the contract also includes $1,000 for travel expenses, and that's typically for the AOC conference in November. And the scope of work in this contract is the contractor will provide regular part-time legal services for the county. And most of that comes out of the increased workload for county council and the expanded need for legal services. And this is a 1-year agreement that goes through July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2025.
Thank you, Isabel. Commissioner Scar, questions, comments?
So I was thinking you were talking about the Headlight Herald as the history of our county. And I think that, in fact, for county government, Mr. Sargent carries a bit of that history for the county.
Not
So,
100 years.
I don't know. I was going to ask him how many years he's been here and worked with us as a part of this, but it's been very long term, and having Mr. Sargent's services is exceptionally helpful. He does have the history. He also works on a lot of the land use with Sarah. There's some specialties he brings that we appreciate. So I approve of this contract, but I would like to know, Bill, tell me when you first started with the county.
Commissioner Scar, I'm not sure I signed a contract in 1991 when I first started, but shortly thereafter I did, and I had a contract with the county every year thereafter till about 2009 when I became full-time county council. That was back in the day. I could take care of, I thought, reasonably well, the legal services for the county, working about half-time. And I had my other practice going on. And then, like I said, about 2009, 2010, it became overwhelming, and I just became a full-time counsel. And that was part of the reason why I retired in 2019, because of the increased workload. So that's where we are now. It's more than one person, I think, can handle. Joel can't do it all alone. I certainly couldn't do it all alone. So I fill in to try to keep the workflow flowing through county council's office, working with Joel. And I'm happy to do it.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Yeah, I think it's a recognition that we live in a litigious society, and the county is often seen as hopefully something with deep pockets. And so we receive a lot of lawsuits. Also, just the public records requests that continue to flow through the county. It's a lot of work for our legal counsel. I'm not sure that people realize how much we have to do with our legal counsel just to protect the county and therefore the people of Tillamook County. So thank you. We appreciate you, Bill.
Thank you.
Commissioner?
Well, thank you. Well, I thought about asking him how many of his opinions have been overturned on appeal and how many times has he been sanctioned by the Bar Association, but I decided not to do that because I think those of us who've been around a while understand we got a pretty qualified municipal attorney in our midst, and I appreciate what he does. I appreciate his response time, unlike a lot of council where you call on Monday and maybe you're here by Thursday or Friday, and that's not the case here. I'm not sure what your hourly rate is in this agreement, but I know it's considerably.
$120 an hour.
120.
Yep.
Well, I will tell you on the record that Tillamook Lightwave is paying a downtown Portland firm that I won't name. Their initials start with S, but they're at $600 an hour now, at least as of a few months ago, might be more now. So we have in our midst a bargain, a qualified, what I consider an expert on municipal law, and I certainly want to do that again. And I guess the bigger question is, one of these days, you're going to come in here and say, I quit, I can't do this anymore, or I want to go fishing. We don't know when that is, and I won't put you on the spot, but.
It certainly won't be for another year.
Okay, because then you'd be in breach of contract, and we would have to talk about that.
That's right.
So we won't. No, I'm very good, all kidding aside, Mr. Sargent, in my years of being associated with the county in one way or another, he's a person who knows what he's doing. He can be trusted, he's honest, and he's competent. I don't know, you can ask for much more than that.
Yeah, and you can't ask for a much better client, generally speaking, than the county. You really can't. The people that work here, that I've worked with all this time, they're all, there's been some bumps, of course, personalities, cases get filed and things get adversarial, but generally speaking, working for government, and in this case, Tillamook County, is really a good gig, I think, for me too. So it's a good thing for me.
Good. Well, it's a good thing for us also. We are grateful for your work. We're grateful for your expertise, your institutional knowledge, your historic knowledge. It's a pleasure to have you on board, and also it's your rate is probably half of anyone else. So thank you for that, because that feels like a gift also.
Yeah, I wish, Mary Faye, sometimes that institutional knowledge would come right straight out as fast as it used to. It just doesn't seem like it comes quite as quickly as
That's true for all of us.
But it usually will come to me after a while.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
Bet
welcome.
we can't download it onto something.
I think we're ready for motion.
All right, thank you. Madam Chair, in consideration of a professional services agreement with William K. Sargent for legal services, I move approval.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Isabel.
Thank you. And I'll be back for my public hearing shortly.
Terrific. Thank you. And thank you, Bill.
You're welcome.
Item 20 is consideration of a professional services agreement with Singer Lewack LLP for auditing services. And with us, we have Sean Blanchard, Tillamook County Treasurer. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Yes, before you is our extension of the professional service agreement with our auditors for auditing our fiscal year 23-24. There is a slight increase. It's up to $99,830, but that does encompass the county audit, solid waste, and 4-H.
Okay. All right. Any questions, Commissioners? Commissioner Scar?
No questions, just a couple quick comments. We are fortunate to have Singer Lewack stay with us. I know that in the world of auditing, there's a lot of shifting that's happening. A lot of auditors are dropping clients simply for lack of capacity in their own agencies, and they are dropping the clients that are problematic, is what I'm finding in other agencies I'm with. So I think the fact that they are staying with us is a testament to Sean and her staff and how well the county finances are managed in her department and the work through her office. They are staying again with people where the auditing is, I'm not going to say easy, but I'm going to say at least routine and is not full of challenges and problems. So I thank Sean and her staff for making it possible for us to keep our auditor at a time when that's not true for everyone. I've heard of other counties who are losing their auditors because of the challenges. So I'm pleased they're willing to stay with us and to Sean's staff for making that happen.
Terrific. Thank you. Commissioner?
Well, thank you. Yes, I agree with what Commissioner Scar just said. There seems to be somewhat of a shortage in the market of auditors, or at least auditing firms that are willing to take on new clients or even continue. And recall one of our issues in the fairly recent past was the inability of one of our water districts in the county to secure an auditor and turn in a timely audit report to the state of Oregon. And so and in some other groups I've been affiliated with as well, it's been difficult, and so the fact that they're here and wanting to continue is probably a good thing. I would ask now, how long have they been engaged here, and how long is this agreement?
This agreement is only for a year. It's renewed yearly. I probably will have to do an RFP next year just because of the cost, their cost increases. They've been here before me.
So going back at least, what, 5 or 6 years or
I
something?
know that they were at least here in '98 when we converted to MIP, our software system.
Mm-hmm. Well, my experience with auditors over the years is they typically seek a multi-year engagement, because the first year they break even or maybe leave and lose a little money because they have to start from scratch and really look at all the stuff that goes on, and then set up a system and a comfort level that works for them. Then years 2 and 3 or 4 are a little better for them, simply because they know the people and the systems are in place. So that sounds like the case here. So this at least takes care of this year. And I have read some of their audits, and you know, they're pretty standard. And there are, for people who don't understand auditing, there are some rather strict rules in America on how you present financial statements, and references are made in the language and you know, such as generally accepted accounting principles and all that sort of thing. And so you need to do that as a matter of law. You also need to do it as a matter of good practice. And so, I think our treasurer would agree that all of us in this room are dealing with other people's money. And so you need somebody looking over your shoulder and saying, okay, you're okay, and everything's in order, and that's the way it should be. So I'm absolutely in support of taking this out another year.
Terrific. Thank you. As am I. I'm glad that I didn't know that auditors were dumping other counties. So I'm glad that that's not our experience, and I'm grateful that we can renew this contract. So I think we're ready for a motion.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. In consideration of a professional services agreement with Singer Lewack LLP for auditing services, I move approval.
I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. All right, Sean, you have the next several items. 21 is consideration of an order in the matter of transferring funds between budgeted line items.
Yes, so each year, at the end of the fiscal year, I do a line item cleanup of any overspent line items, any budgets that have gone over what they were adopted in this fiscal year. There are a couple cleanups in community development, HR, non-departmental, and the DA CAMI, which was just a misunderstanding between Karen and I last year, so we're trying to fix it. So I am having to transfer some funds out of contingency into those departments. There are also some transfers where I cannot transfer between personal services and materials and services, or materials and services and capital outlay without a board order from the commissioners.
Okay,
So this is what this represents.
okay, thank you. Commissioner Scar?
No, this is a standard cleanup that we do at the end of each year. The budget is, of course, a best guess, an estimate for how expenses will come throughout the year. And sometimes you just something in a particular line item is more than one expected, and something in a different line item is less. And Treasurer Blanchard is able to take and move things among line items to make sure that at the end of the year we are within our budgeted parameters, which is back to our conversation about audits. One of the important pieces that has to happen for us to have a clean audit is that she's got to do the cleanup work to prove that we know where our funds went. So while a budget is a best guess, the auditors really expect us to hit pretty darn close to the mark. So I think these are changes that are simply required as a cleanup. I'm comfortable with them.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Thank you. I support this as a matter of routine as well, but I think maybe people should understand if you overexpend one line item or one category, that doesn't mean that your budget is overexpended. It simply means that certain items, let's take an example, fuel oil might cost more than you had budgeted, while something else, electric utilities, might be substantially less. And so you balance all that out at the end of the year, and the county is not spending money it doesn't have. And I think that's the message for our taxpayers and citizens across the county. We're simply bringing things back into reality at the end of the fiscal year, which we do every year, and every organization does that. So I would support the request, and again, it's pretty routine, but there's some logic and reason behind it.
Thank you. I support it also, and Sean, you talked about taking money out of contingency. Do you know how much? Do you have that handy?
It was a total of $252,000. A big portion of that was part of our audit last year. It was found how property taxes were being distributed. Should have been coming out of the general fund, and that update has been made, but it wasn't in time to get in the budget this year for fiscal year 23-24. So that's the biggest portion. Otherwise, 38,000, 50,000, very small amounts as far as contingency, except for that one.
Okay, all right.
Has been corrected for fiscal year 24-25 budget.
Great, thank you. I agree with my fellow commissioners that this is a standard practice, and also we've been talking for a while now about how we're anticipating a decrease in revenue and how important our contingency is. That's what it's there for, and if, we spend it down, then we're not gonna have it later, so.
Right.
Yeah, so, okay, I think we're ready for a motion.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. In consideration of order number 24-037, in the matter of transferring funds between budgeted line items, I move approval.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Okay, item 22 is consideration of an order in the matter of adopting a supplemental budget for fiscal year 2023, 2024, and appropriating funds.
So at the May 22nd Budget Committee hearing, I supplied the committee and the commissioners with a supplemental budget. This is increasing funds in TLT, increasing transfers to the road into TLT facilities. There was some increase in workforce housing due to expenditures, increase in mental health, the county's school resource pass-through funds. Usually I get an audit comment on those too because I can't keep up with them. I'm not sure if I did again this year or not. I tried, but it's too late now to notice anything for this fiscal year. There was also a slight increase in the road debt service and the road improvement construction due to invoice that crossed fiscal years last year.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Commissioner Scar?
No comments. I think we've kind of talked through what the supplemental budget process is, and this is simply the solid waste district instead of the entire county, and I'm in support.
No, this is the
Thank
county.
you. I think we
Oh,
have
whoops,
covered
sorry.
this.
Yeah. this
My
is
my
the
head,
entire
my
county.
head on my agenda here.
This one's the county.
The county, sorry. What? Okay, my bad.
That's okay.
So yes, we have covered this in some detail, but just to remind people who might be listening or viewing is a budget is simply a roadmap, and at the end of the year, I don't think anybody expects the $150 million plus or minus to be precise. It's a roadmap, and every year there are some adjustments that need to be made. And again, the county is not spending money it doesn't have. It's simply accounting for it properly. So that's what this is. So yes, I'm in support in this routine, and so I will vote for it.
As am I. I think we're ready for a motion.
Thank you. In consideration of order number 24-038 in the matter of adopting a supplemental budget for fiscal year 23-24 and appropriating funds, I move approval.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Okay. One more. Consideration of item 23, consideration of an order in the matter of transferring funds between budgeted line items for the Solid Waste Service District.
And again, I bring before you, these are funds that I needed to move from materials and services into capital outlay. I cannot do that without a board order, and this is for the Solid Waste Service District as they are their own district.
Thank you. Commissioner Scar?
What I said last time, I meant
Right.
this time.
Noted.
I'm back online with my agenda. Thank you. I have no questions.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Nor do I. Simply, again, we're doing what we've done with other budgets, and I think people would need to know that the county is responsible for a variety of funds, proprietary and otherwise, in addition to the regular county budget, and this would be one of them, the Solid Waste Service District. So again, complying with what needs to be done at the end of the year.
Terrific. I agree, and we're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, in consideration of order number 24-039 and SWSD order number 24-007 in the matter of transferring funds between budgeted line items for the Solid Waste Service District, I move approval.
I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. All right, thank you, Sean.
I'll be back.
Okay. Item 24 is time-certain public hearing concerning obligating Title III projects for fiscal year 2023-2024. And with us again, we have Isabel Gilda, Executive Assistant, and let's see, something I'm supposed to, we're recessing our meeting at 10:31 in order to go into the public hearing. Isabel.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Thank you, Commissioners. For the record, Isabel Gala, Executive Assistant in the Board of Commissioners Office. As you know, the county has one round of rural
Uh-oh, we're losing
the public
your
hearing
audio.
to hear the public testimony. Can you hear me now?
Yes, where the first sentence you said was just all choppy.
Okay, it's kind of choppy on my end too when I listen. So, as you know, the county has one round of Secure Rural Schools Act Title III funding solicitations. We started that process several months ago with the commissioners back in April. Today is a public hearing to hear the public testimony on the Title III projects that were submitted for fiscal year 23-24. A brief overview of the Title III, it's federal timber money at the county that contains national forests and receives timber and other land use revenues derived from these forests. We are permitted by federal law to allocate up to 7% of those payments to projects that are permitted under the Title III of the Secure Rural Schools and Community Self-Determination Act of 2000. It's quite an act. On April 24th, you read a motion into the record initiating the projects as required by the Act. We then had a 45-day public comment period that followed that, and that closed on June 14th. We received one public comment from the City of Bay City, signed by the Mayor, Leanne Welch, and that's included in your packet. And following the public hearing today, the board will deliberate and read the motion provided to you in your packet to obligate the funds. We initiated, now that it's the public hearing, is to obligate the funds. And the motion provided will be appended with your project awards. So you'll get to decide. We have received 2 applications, one from the Oregon Department of Forestry and one from the Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's Office, we have $75,000 available. The Sheriff's Office submitted an application, and it's really just for partial funding. Their project is an incident command trailer. It's $200,000. And Department of Forestry submitted their application for the Tillamook County Yard Debris Program for $75,000. So we have $75,000 available, and it's be up to the commissioners to obligate to break that money up or allocate it to one or the other applications. So there are 4 authorized uses for Title III funds. That includes activities under the Firewise program with intent of providing homeowners in fire-sensitive areas with education and assistance to firefighting and law enforcement patrols on federal land as defined by the Act. The third authorized use is training costs and equipment purchases directly related to emergency services described in the search and rescue. And then the 4th authorized use is to develop and carry out community wildfire protection plans. ODF developed a countywide plan in 2010 with Title III grant funds. And so you have a table that shows you each application, how much they asked for, how much we have, and the difference. And the next step would be after my discussion, for the chair to open the public hearing, and then we can hear public testimony. And I believe that the Sheriff Brown should be attending virtually, and State Forester Kate Skinner might be in the room.
Thank you. Thank you, Isabel. Do we have any questions of Isabel?
No, not at this time.
Commissioner Scar, questions? Okay.
Not at this time, thank you.
Thank you. We will open the public hearing for public testimony. Going once, going twice. All right, then I'd like to hear from the applicants. I'll invite Ed Walmark to come up. Good morning, thank you for being here.
Good morning, Commissioner. For the record, again, my name's Ed Walmark, Protection Unit Forester of Tillamook.
Good morning.
Good morning. So this program's been in existence since 2013. It's been a great partnership with Tillamook County Solid Waste. This program enables folks, instead of burning during the high fire season burning conditions, we wouldn't want folks to burn debris. They can take it to the transfer station free of charge. So over the years, we've collected, since 2018 to 2013, just for some statistics, we've carried over 2,500 tons that would normally be burned like during the fire season when we do not want to have that happening. It enables folks to do their own defensible space and then have a place to dispose of that material. So we are asking for $75,000. Our costs stemmed there's about $20,000 a month when we're doing this service, so it would get us through those months. I will report, though, I have some positive things to report on this. We do have a Western States Fire Marshal grant that we were approved of $186,000, but that won't be in effect until this next fall for the next 3 years carrying forward. I'm aware of how Title III works, and sometimes funds are available, they aren't available. So this mechanism here that I just mentioned would be able to carry this program forward in the future, since our citizens have relied on it since 2013. So.
That's fabulous news.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for letting us know.
Okay.
Okay, commissioners, do we have any questions for Ed? Commissioner Scar?
Yeah, and Madam Chair, if I may, just to clarify that there's $186,000 that would come next fall and could potentially carry the totality of this program for the following year? Is that what you said,
Yeah,
Ed?
so it wouldn't be, so Commissioner Scar, it wouldn't be until next summer that this would carry forward with the $186,000. So we would need a stopgap right now for this
Sure.
summer, for this funding request here.
Right, but it would be possible that in the next round, should the next round occur a year from now, you would not need that because you would then be under the fire marshal grant.
Correct, yeah.
Okay,
Correct, that is correct.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Thank you. The only question I have then, I think was just answered, the 75,000 you're asking is for this fire season, essentially starting now through all of the season that we're going into. And then next year, you probably wouldn't be back here if this other one materializes because you'd be good for the next 2 or 3 years.
That's correct, sir.
So
yes.
we could say this is kind of a stopgap in a way to continue a program that's there and then phase it into another source of funding.
Correct.
Okay, I think I understand that. And parallel to that, what is your estimation of the fire season risk? I have read where it might be slightly below average this year, but then things can change. So what do
So
you
when I
know?
was here last time, I did give a little update on the weather, and we
Yes.
just got our newest information in for the next July, August, September. And it's still looking, I mean, we still have August ahead of us, our hottest month, but September, the latest outlook was looking like perhaps it would be wetter and coming to an end sooner than later, unlike we haven't seen in the last few years, so.
But we're still at considerable risk and because of
Oh,
what
yeah.
things happen and what people do.
Absolutely. We have a couple fires burning in Oregon right now, so.
Do
it's
you
starting.
know what percent, and I'm sure there's this information somewhere, what percent of wildfires are caused by humans versus lightning or something natural?
The humans causes number one versus lightning.
That's
It's
what I understood,
completely
so.
true, yeah. So,
Depressing, isn't it?
it is. People are, yeah,
Yeah, preventable.
yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you, that's good.
Well, the fire marshal grant information is very exciting. So thanks for letting us know about that. Yeah, that's terrific.
Yeah.
So as I recall, I know we're getting started late with the program this year because there wasn't funding in place. As I recall, in previous years, you've been able to extend the program into October, I believe, rather than ending it in September. So can you talk about that? Like, if you get funding today, that what's your idea?
I would anticipate now, Commissioner Bell, that it would be July, August, and September. That would get us through $60,000, because I mentioned it's about $20,000 a month on average. It could be higher or lower, but that's a good average. So that would get us through those key months. Of course, if you allocated a little more, we could go into October. As I said, with this other grant that would come into effect next year, we could probably do it through June, in theory, through October, and make it run longer. But honestly, we ran out of money last year, and so our budget kind of picked it up a little bit, which was fine. So that's why we're asking for this stopgap right now
Okay,
for the money.
all right. That's terrific. Thank you.
But-
Okay, now, if you don't mind staying there for a moment, I'll ask Sheriff Brown if he'd like to come on and say something about his application.
Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
So this is something I've talked about for quite some time, and it should be in the application pretty well what it is that we're trying to do. I know there was some confusion about the funding portion of this because a custom-built incident command trailer is going to run at least, well, it was quoted to me a year and a half ago at 200,000, so it's probably going to be more. But the idea is that the funding will come from a whole slew of different places. Our SAR banquet raises funds, so we have funds in there through community donations. We've been collecting those for years, so the Sheriff's Trust special revenue account, which is where those raised donations go to, is becoming large enough to be able to support a large portion of the cost of this. We had some donations from the Miller Family Foundation, from the Bob Riggert Family Foundation. We've been talking with the Lauren Parks, but I know there was some questions about that. But It sounded like there was a very good possibility of being able to get some funds from there. So my point is that the Title III funds would be one of many portions of or pots of money that we would be utilizing to get this trailer. You know, we do have some Title III money that's still left over from some other purchases that we're still working on. This would make a significant step towards the purchase of that. In addition to, like I said, the other funds. Now, I was not aware, and maybe, and I guess maybe I'd be really curious to confirm. Am I understanding that the Firewise program will be funded through a state fire marshal grant moving forward, not including right now? Is that kind of what I'm understanding?
Yeah, it would be moving forward, it's not for right now. And I said it wrong, it's a Western State Fire Managers Grant, sorry.
Okay.
That's okay.
So yeah, I'm anyways, that's where we're at. You know, I recognize that Firewise may have funding down the road and they need that stopgap now. We're probably, well, it depends on what we can get from Title III to be able to tell you exactly how far out we are. If we had 100,000 or, you know, or so in Title III money, we'd probably be less than a year out from having this trailer built. So, if we don't get that, we're further out. The Title III is a significant step in getting us to that trailer. So, realistically, I guess it's just all about timing.
Thank you, Sheriff.
I can take questions if you have it, but that's the best short version I can give you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Well, you kind of answered my question. What I was wondering about is how much money you have set aside already for the trailer and how far out you are. So you've kind of answered that, because I was thinking that typically at least since I've been on this board, we have essentially split the money between the Firewise program and search and rescue, because of course we totally support both programs. And so what I'm wondering today is if we were to split it, that doesn't get you anywhere near where you need to be to get the trailer built immediately, and it also shorts Firewise this summer. But given that Ed just told us that they have funding for Firewise in place already for next year, I'm wondering about shifting more funding to Firewise this summer and more funding to search and rescue next summer. So do you want to, I'm inviting you to respond to that, Sheriff. Does it seem reasonable to you? Would you oppose it or support it?
Quite honestly, I would support that. They need that stopgap, and they have plans in place for future funding, which basically means that if you know, that basically means next year, when money comes through, Firewise won't be asking for money. So we'll be the only organization asking for the money. So, you know, and I'm not saying that greedily. I'm saying that as just as a matter of fact, you know. So if they need this for that stopgap, and we're aware that they've got their funding in place for future years, that gives me the ability to, actually, you know, well, I guess it all depends on how much money comes in, but realistically, that, you know, that is a feasible option that makes sense. It can also give me the ability to kind of actually lock in a little bit more, because then I know that in theory, they're not going to, you know, there won't be a competition for whatever Title III money comes in, because we'll be the only ones requesting. So I can plan a little bit more according to that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Commissioners?
Well, thank you. That's about where I was heading as well. The fires across Oregon in recent years, going back only, you know, less than 10 years, we've had some devastating fires, including the Columbia Gorge and the Otis fire. I don't recall what the exact name was down there, but then of course up the Santiam Canyon and all. And so anything that can be done to prevent that, and not only the loss of life, but property and things that are still not right after several years, to me that makes more sense for one reason, and to fill the gap, that adds some logic behind that. And then separately from that, the sheriff's need, while I consider it extremely valid, he has other sources of funding, and maybe next year it can all go his way. And both things can get done over the next couple of years. So I'm in support of fully funding the fire program to see what we can prevent, and not see what we can prevent, but to prevent something from happening in our part of Oregon.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Scar?
Just a quick point of order that we're still in the public hearing. Do we need to close that for our deliberations?
You would, yes.
Thank you.
Just because we seem to have moved to deliberation.
Well,
Yeah.
I was wondering if you had any further questions for applicants, but I didn't say that, so thank you.
No, I have no further questions for applicants. Thank you.
Okay, then we will close the public hearing at 10:48 and move right into deliberations. Commissioner Scar?
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. No, I'm in agreement with the general conversation that occurred during the public hearing piece, which is if we are able to prioritize Firewise this year, which allows us to prioritize the sheriff's command trailer next year, I think it's a great way to meet the needs of our community. And to both the sheriff's point that it gives him the opportunity to lock and load. Here's what I have for over the next year with his foundations, et cetera, as he's asking to be able to say, we plan to order this and have a date for that, knowing that Title III would likely be added to the trailer pot next year. So I think it sounds like a great way, again, to meet the needs of our community.
Okay. Well, is there anything further either of you would like to say about this?
Thank you. No, not really. I think I just said my rationale, probably at the wrong time in
That's
the
okay.
hearing. But yes, I think the Firewise program could use this and make good use of it immediately. And we'll never know what we prevented, but maybe that's not a bad thing either. If we get through another season with no loss of life and significant property, I consider that money pretty well spent.
Agree. Anything additional for you, Commissioner Scar? Okay, so are we all in, do we have consensus that we'd like to award the full $75,000 to the Firewise program this year?
Yes.
Okay. All right, then here's a piece that I need to read aloud. The Tillamook County Board of Commissioners is required to formally obligate any projects under Title III of the Secure Rural Schools and Community Self-Determination Act of 2000. And would you like to make this motion?
Okay, Madam Chair, I move to obligate Title III funds to the grant projects for fiscal year 23-24 as follows. And then I will add to that the activities under the Firewise Community Program in an amount of $75,000.
Thank you.
I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Commissioners. And that's my cue to, we'll have the ODF agreement on the July 3rd agenda for your consideration.
Fabulous. Well, our constituents will be very glad to know that because we've heard from a lot of people that they're waiting for that program.
We will spread the word.
It's a very popular program, for sure.
Yeah, it really is. All right. Thanks so much, Ed. And thank you, Sheriff. We really appreciate your partnership.
Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel. Okay. So we have closed the public hearing for Title III at 10:52 a.m. And we will open a public hearing, the second public hearing at 10:52 a.m. concerning the proposed budget, appropriating funds, levying, and categorizing ad valorem taxes for the fiscal year 2024-2025. Again, Sean Blanchard, Tillamook County Treasurer.
Good morning again, Commissioners. I do have one update that I noticed when I was back there. In the last paragraph on this order, it should be 2024, 2025, and not 2023, 2024.
Okay.
Very last one, when it has to be read.
You're going back to the one we just did then, right?
Let's see, that's not that. Maybe I don't have what has to be read.
These will all need to be read into record for the different budgets.
Okay,
I'll just leave them up here with you, how's that?
okay, this, let's see, this one, and then
This one,
this one.
and then this one.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, thank you.
Yep.
All righty
So,
then.
yes, before you is the board order to adopt the budget that was approved at the May 22nd hearing by the Budget Committee members and by the board. I'll just need it read into record, and I will file it with the assessor.
Okay. Commissioners, would you like to discuss this first? Would you like me to read it into the record and then you discuss it?
We are having a public hearing.
True.
Do we open that first before we?
Yes, indeed, thank you. I have opened the public hearing, so this is an opportunity for public comment. Okay, hearing none. I don't remember, Bill. Is there a typical?
Hearing none, close the public hearing and you guys can
Right.
go forward.
Thank you. Okay, so we're closing that public hearing at 10:54. And in terms of the process, do we typically read this into the record first and then discuss it, or does it matter?
I don't think it matters. You can read it into a record and then discuss it.
Okay, all right,
I think that's the way it's been done before, I
Thank
think.
you.
Mary Faith.
all right.
These once a year, and so it's like, which way do you do it?
I don't remember reading all these before, but maybe somebody else did it.
Yes.
Okay, in the matter of the adopting the budget, appropriating funds, and categorizing taxes for the fiscal year 2024 to 2025, this matter came before the Tillamook County Board of Commissioners on June 26, 2024, at which time it appears that the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget for Tillamook County has been proposed, and whereas the Tillamook County Budget Committee has approved the budget for the 2024-2025 fiscal year, now therefore be it ordered that the Tillamook County Board of Commissioners hereby adopts the budget for fiscal year 2024-2025 in the sum of $129,907,900 now on file at the Tillamook County Courthouse. That is the aggregate sum of budget requirements for all funds. Be it further ordered that the amounts for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2024, and for the purposes shown are hereby appropriated on Exhibit A attached hereto and incorporated by reference herein. Be it further ordered that the Tillamook County Board of Commissioners hereby imposes the taxes provided for in the adopted budget at the rates of 1.4986 per $1,000 of assessed value for the general fund, 0.65 per $1,000 for the library fund, 0.07 per $1,000 for the Veteran Services Fund, and in the amount of $354,600 for the Road Debt Service Fund, and that these taxes are hereby imposed and categorized for tax year 2024 to 2025 upon the assessed value of all taxable property within the district, subject to the general government limitation. Okay. So subject to the general government limitation are the general fund, the library fund, the Veteran Services Fund, and excluded from the limitation is the Road Debt Service Fund. Right. So that could be in order if you were to so move it.
And then we would have discussion following that. Okay, so Madam Chair, I would move that we adopt the motion, or not the motion, the material just read by the chair into the record, and would move for approval.
I would second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and now we can have further discussion.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm glad to see we got to this point, because this year has been a bit of a struggle. I probably have a longer history than anybody in the room. I've been on the Budget Committee for something close to 20 years, if you can believe that, and doesn't seem like it. And I remember some good years and some not so good years, and this was definitely one of the latter, simply because for a variety of reasons, including increased costs, some revenue expectations that weren't fully met. We've had to transfer monies from reserves and stabilization funds to balance the budget. And it's pretty obvious to all of us, I think, that can't continue indefinitely. We are balanced this year. All the bills will be paid and the checks will clear the bank, and there will be careful monitoring throughout this coming fiscal year, as there always is. However, the longer-term issue is something that we're grappling with, and I will just say for those who might be watching, we've scheduled a series of hearings starting on July 10, I believe, which is a Wednesday, in place once a month in place of a board briefing session in the afternoons to talk about this particular dilemma. And I've taken a lead on that and prepared a matrix of about at least 25 actions to consider, and we'll probably have more before we're all done. And we'll put the budget committee in the room. They've agreed to come back over the next months, which is a bit unusual. We'll have the board there and our department heads, and it'll be certainly open to the public. And so those comments can come under discussion. I'm not exactly sure how we'll proceed, but I, excuse me, I see maybe separating into an A and a B. Are being things that could be implemented fairly quickly and would have some significance either on the revenue or expenditure side, and then B would be those that might require somewhat more information and would be more of a long-term solution or something like that. So we're going to work through these various options and add a few more, and some of them I will just say are quite disagreeable, simply because we must have a balanced budget. And so on that list are things including going to a 4-day week, which means, which has been done elsewhere in Oregon, fairly recently at Clackamas County, maybe going to a 6-hour day. Again, that affects employees, and there are lots of side issues, like we have certain departments that are adequately funded, like parks and health department. Would they participate in that? We don't know. What about a lot of other departments? And there are many other things that we can talk about, including enhancing our revenue, and there'll be probably a separate significant discussion about increasing the transit lodging room tax across the county, and we'll see where that ends up, but it's all part of the much bigger picture. And so this year will be a bit unusual, simply because we've got to look not just to next year, but 3 and 5 and 7 years out. Where does the money come from? And if we can't have some certainty attached to that money, what do we do without? What do we cut? Because as you just heard, we must have a balanced budget. So, I could go on in some detail, but I think that's enough to say that if you're at all interested in this, and I think people should be, because it affects what your government does here in Tillamook County. We will have some pretty serious and difficult discussions over the coming months and trying to set a course for the next several years that makes sense. Part of it is a result of changes in the forest and harvest levels. Part of it is inflation. Part of it is things that we're asked to do that maybe we didn't do before, directions from the state and the feds. So all of that is on the table, and nothing has been decided at all, but we'll have a conversation. And I've always been of the opinion that if you put smart people who have really a vested interest and a dedicated interest in public service, we're going to come out the other end with something that works. It may be a bit disagreeable, but the county will be here, and most of the important things will remain on the table to be done. So that's my speech on that one. It's just going to be difficult, but we are where we are today with a balanced budget, and much more to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Scar?
Thank you, Commissioner Olson, for laying that all out. It is going to be a difficult series of years, I believe, for the county. We do have an expected reduction in revenue. We have seen increases in expenses, some of which we have done in order to support our staff to a point that we talked about earlier, making sure people are paid what they're worth. And that is a challenge then for us to fund, but we know it's the right thing to do, so we continue to move forward. It is going to create challenges. It is going to be a multi-year process. I appreciate that Commissioner Olson laid out the committee work that we'll be doing over the next portion of this fiscal year, but I expect that will be multiple fiscal years as we really potentially look at some new ways to operate in the county that allow us to provide the mandated services that we have from the state within the revenues that we have now and any new ones that we're able to generate. But it is potentially going to be a structural conversation with the county. So I do hope that those in the community who have taken the interest, we had quite a bit of interest in this last year. Certainly as we had an open election seats for commissioners, we had the public that really wanted to engage in this conversation. I invite, encourage, and hope that they will continue to do so, because this is going to impact potentially the services that are available from the county to our residents as we look at balancing the inflows and the outflows of cash. So it's definitely a challenging piece. One of the other pieces of work that the county has undertaken in the last year, almost year and a half, is a strategic planning process. And the strategic planning process will come to a finish probably in the next month or so, and will also help guide us in these conversations going forward about how we utilize our revenues, how we provide the services, how can we be the best county government that's possible. So I think there's a lot of good work afoot. It is also very, very challenging and concerning. I look to the future and it does concern me that we are passing a budget this year with as high a use of reserves as we are. But I don't see another path forward. So that is our path for this year, backed up by a lot of very hard work between this year and the next budget cycle so that we can have a balanced budget then as well. So thank you, appreciate that, and we will go forward and work hard all together.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you both. I appreciate your comments. I think you've covered all the most significant points in terms of yes, indeed, this is a balanced budget, and for special revenue departments, it's positive, and for the general fund, it's less positive, and we had to use reserves in order to balance it, and so there are, I look forward to the work ahead. While I agree with my fellow commissioners that it will be difficult conversations to be had, I look forward to it because I think it is incumbent upon us to get out in front of these decisions that will be made next year, and figure out what is our approach and what matches our philosophy. What are the first steps we'll take if we simply can't balance the budget in the future without taking those steps. So I in particular encourage the leaders in county government to participate in those budget workshops with us. We need all the fine minds, in the organization to work on the subject with us, and there will be opportunities in the future this year for the public to engage in that process with us also. And I've already had a couple people in the community who have been listening to Doug on the radio reach out to me and say, hey, I have some ideas I'd like to be included in those conversations, and there's definitely room at the table for people in this community who want to work on this issue with us, because it's really important. It's important to not only to employees, but also to constituents, because our employees provide services that you depend on, and so that's what's at stake. So that's somber. I'm glad we're passing the budget, and it's the message is somber. Do we have anything else before we want to vote?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, well, we have a motion and a second. And I think we're ready for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. All right, thank you. So, Sean, as I was reading this one, thinking, how come I've never read these before? I heard your voice in my mind and I realized that you used to read these.
I think the auditor suggested that I had the commissioners read them in a couple years ago. And I know I remember David having to, we adopted the budget one year and he had to reread that into the record the following week.
Gotcha. Oh, okay, okay, all right. Okay, so this one is for solid waste, the Solid Waste Service District. Okay, now I've lost my... All right, we need to open the public hearing concerning the proposed budget appropriating funds and categorizing taxes for the Solid Waste Service District. We're opening this public hearing at 11:08. So Sean, do you have anything you want to say about the solid waste budget?
I don't, I thought Justin may have stuck around, but he left. It was first year working with him and Chris Lady on the solid waste budget, and it went well, and I look forward to continue working with him.
Terrific, thank you. Do we have any questions for Sean?
No, thank you. I don't have any questions. Are we in a public hearing now? So I can.
We are.
Okay, so no, I have nothing. I'll add a remark when we're out of the public hearing.
Okay. Commissioner
I have no
Scar?
question. Nope,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, then we will open this hearing to public comment. Do we have any public comment? The hearing is open and closed to public comment at 11:09 a.m. And so we can now move into deliberation. I'll read this into the record. In the matter of the adopting the budget, appropriating funds, and categorizing taxes for the Solid Waste Service District for fiscal year 2024-2025, this matter came before the Tillamook County Board of Commissioners, sitting as the governing body of the Solid Waste Service District on June 26, 2024, at which time it appears that the 2024-2025 budget for the Solid Waste Service District has been proposed, and whereas the Solid Waste Service District Budget Committee has approved the 2024-2025 Solid Waste Service District budget, now, therefore, be it ordered that the Tillamook County Board of Commissioners, sitting as the Board of Directors for the Solid Waste Service District, now adopts the budget for fiscal year 2024-2025 in the total sum of $7,119,090. Be it further ordered that the amount for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2024, and for the purposes shown are hereby appropriated on Exhibit A attached hereto and incorporated by reference herein. Be it further ordered that the Tillamook County Board of Commissioners, sitting as the Board of Directors of the Solid Waste Service District, hereby levies the solid waste service charge in the aggregate amount of $252,936 provided for in the adopted budget. The following allocation and categorization subject to the limits of Section 11B, Article 11 of the Oregon Constitution make up the above aggregate levy, subject to the general government limitation of solid waste service charge of $52,936.
You'd like a motion?
That could be a motion.
Okay, Madam Chair, I will move that the matter and information just read into the record by Commissioner Bell be approved.
I will second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and we can move into discussion.
Okay, thank you. My only discussion, and really not a discussion, just a statement, is I've been the liaison to that group, the solid waste group, and attended, I think, nearly all their meetings, and including some budget hearings and some fairly in-depth discussions with the various providers. And I was really quite impressed and impacted by the amount of detail and knowledge that they put into the thought and the rationale behind what they do. And you will recall not too long ago, we had some of those providers here, I think from the North County, and they're people doing good work that is well thought out, it's necessary work, and the money is under a lot of really watchful eyes, more than I ever imagined. And so I'm quite comfortable with the numbers, and they are what they are, and there's lots of moving parts, including the future closure of the Coffin Butte landfill down in Corvallis, and some other solid waste stuff around Oregon that change from time to time. For example, some of the nations in Asia that took a lot of our plastics and other refuse no longer do that. And so that's had to make some we've had to adapt to different ways of doing stuff. And so it's not a simple business. It's really quite complex with lots of moving parts, the cost of fuel and labor. And so I've been quite impressed that they've got their arms around it and we're doing what we need to do. Probably could be done differently or better, but that'll happen over some period of time. But this budget reflects the reality of what it takes to do this. So that's my statement on this. It's well done, I think, in Tillamook County, and not everybody knows all the stuff behind the scenes unless you hang out at a garbage dump, which most people don't. So I just wanted to say that on the record, that we have a pretty good system with good people.
Thank you. Commissioner Scar?
I would echo my colleagues' comments. I think our solid waste district is well run. I think that, it just takes some money to haul trash, and that's really what we've got to do. I think we will see a change in the next couple of years as we add more recycling under the Modernization Act here in Oregon, and that will be an interesting evolution, if you will, of our service district and undoubtedly its funding, et cetera. So this budget, however, is clearly presented and will do exactly what we need. So I'm in approval.
Thank you, as am I. And also, I would echo my fellow commissioners' sentiments about the excellent operation of the solid waste department and the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. It was a pleasure to serve as their liaison and learn about that industry. And it's one of the it's a vital unsung hero. I think largely people don't think about where our waste is going, how it's handled, how it's managed, the things we have to be responsible for, and it really is an impressive organization and group of individuals, citizen members who volunteer their time to help steward the program. So with that, I think we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay. So we will open the third public hearing at 10:15 concerning 11:15 concerning adopting the budget, appropriating funds, imposing ad valorem taxes, and categorizing taxes for the 4-H and Extension Service District for the fiscal year 2024-2025.
Last budget to adopt, and with me I have Chrissy Dixon, the 4-H and Extension Office Manager over there. She and I worked together this year to put their budget together. She did a wonderful job because it's first year?
First year, yeah.
First year. And before you is the board order to read and their budget to adopt.
Wonderful, thank you. Would you like to come up?
I can if you'd like.
You're invited to come up and sit with the treasurer if you'd like. Thank you for your work on this.
You're welcome.
She's like, do I have to come? Yeah.
So, commissioners, do we have any questions for staff, for Chrissy? It is Chrissy, right?
Yes.
Yes, for Chrissy or for Sean? No? Commissioner Scar?
I do not. I wish I could think of one just to make Chrissy kind of squirm, but I won't. It's nice to see you, Chrissy.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being here in person. Okay, then we will open the public hearing for public comment. Do we have any public comment? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing for public comment at 11:16 a.m. and I will read the order into the record. In the matter of adopting the budget, appropriating funds, imposing ad valorem taxes, and categorizing taxes for the 4-H and Extension Service District for fiscal year 2024 to 2025, whereas the Tillamook County 4-H and Extension Service District Budget Committee has approved the budget for the 2024-2025 fiscal year, now therefore be it ordered that the Tillamook County Board of Commissioners, sitting as the directors of the Tillamook County 4-H and Extension Service District, hereby adopts the budget approved by the Budget Committee for the 2024-2025 in the total sum of $1,617,281, which is the aggregate sum of budget requirements for all funds. Be it further ordered that the amounts for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2024, and for the purposes shown on the attached sheet and incorporated by reference herein are hereby appropriated. Be it further ordered that the Tillamook County Board of Commissioners hereby imposes the taxes provided for in the adopted budget at a rate of 0.069 per thousand of assessed value for operations, and then that these taxes are hereby imposed and categorized for tax year 2024-2025 upon the assessed value of all taxable property within the district.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I will move approval of the 4-H budget as read into the record by the chair.
I would second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and we can move into discussion.
Well, thank you. I'll simply say what I said again when you made a presentation a while back, that if you take what you do and then FFA with a similar type organization, I think that that does more for our young people than about anything I can think of. They simply learn responsibility and creativity, and I think that stays with them the rest of their life. And I had asked before, if anybody knew how many 4-H people wind up in prison, and nobody seemed to know, but the number's pretty darn low. And I did get some follow-up comments on that, which I appreciated. So I think it's just a great program, and I think it's especially significant here in Tillamook County because we're a rural county and we're an agricultural county, and so people take advantage of that. And I would bet if you talk to somebody who's in his 50s or 60s, or they would remember that as a good thing in their lives. So thank you for what you do, and I'm very, very much want to see this go forward.
Thank you. Commissioner Scar?
I agree with my colleague. 4-H Extension is a fabulous program in our community. Everything from arts programs for, our younger kids working their way up, as you pointed out, Commissioner Olson, into the animal work that our kids do, and there's sewing, and there's a million things that happen. And then, of course, our professors of practice that are here that contribute to our communities in just so many exceptional ways. So really appreciate 4-H and have enjoyed being on this budget committee for the 4-H as a commissioner. It's sort of, I didn't realize that was one of the duties. Of course, when you become a commissioner, you get a lot of things you didn't know were coming your way. This was one of them, but this one is a pleasure. So Chrissy, what I really want to say is thank you, and thank you please to everyone in your office. Share our appreciation for all that you all bring to the community.
Thank you. I agree completely with my fellow commissioners. I think 4-H is essential. It's an essential part of our culture. It's just it's so important here. The services provided, the education provided, the support for children and adults. It's very important and beloved. So I'm grateful for your work and that of your whole team, and grateful that our community continues to support 4-H in Tillamook County. So with that, do we have any further discussion? If not, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Chrissy. Thanks for being here, and thanks for your work.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Sean. Thanks for all of your work and your team's work on this budget process, which is a mountain of work over a period of months. And I hope that you feel relieved and you know how grateful we are to you and your team for your work. Right? Yeah. 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 Well, thank you.
We cannot get it done without you.
Okay. Well, with that, we will move into item 32, which is board concerns. Commissioner?
Thank you. I really have none. I think I've offered a few comments today, and so it's been a long meeting, but we've got some heavy-duty work ahead of us, but we've reached almost the end of a fiscal year, and so the county remains solvent, and we've got lots of good people doing things, and the future is bright, although we've got some bumps in the road. But so no, beyond that are our immediate challenges. I think we'll get through all of them, one way or another.
Thank you. Commissioner Scar?
I'm just going to highlight really quickly that this Friday morning at 8:30 is the Council of Forest Trust Land Counties full membership meeting. The meeting will be held at the Association of Oregon Counties offices in Salem, and there will also be an online option. The topic for this meeting is really the information that's coming out of the small table group that has been seated with representatives from the governor's office for the last, I believe it's 9 months, working through, is there a path forward to support counties that are going to be financially damaged by the Habitat Conservation Plan? There are 3 potential options that are on the table that are palatable politically to the governor's office and to the counties. There are certainly ones that we prefer over others, but at the end of the day, the legislature will likely need to take an action in order to move any of this work forward. So this partnership with the governor's office has really been to explore what we think is acceptable to counties and what they think the legislature would be willing to act on. So I know that Commissioner Olson was able to attend the CFTLC board member meeting last Friday and had the preview of these 3 options. Commissioner Bell, I hope that you will be able to attend this coming Friday, because then we as a board of commissioners will need to have some conversation, because there will likely be a time toward, I'm assuming the middle to end of July, when Doug will be asked to cast a ballot on our behalf as the voting member for Tillamook County. So we will need to have had some conversation prior to that. I will let you know that one of the options is related to school funding and how that is managed at the state level. And I am in conversation with our school superintendents right now to just evaluate the impacts to our schools and make sure that what we are doing is keeping their funding whole. So more to come on that. Our superintendents are on vacation right now, at least 2 out of the 3. So we've been conversing from their vacations as well. So they're not going to be able to get in front of us with information for a couple of weeks, but we are working through that, and we'll make sure that there is presentation of financial impacts for all of the school districts to the commissioners before we take a vote on this. But so just kind of a heads up on that. I won't try to explain all the options or do any of that here today, since there is a meeting for that on Friday. But just this work is coming to a close, and the options will be put out in front of us all to talk about.
Terrific, thank you.
Commissioner, yes, I'm aware of that meeting because I was online, as you mentioned. Is the vote planned for Friday, or is that going to be pushed off and after the discussion, or do you know?
I have asked that vote be pushed off. I'm the vice chair, not the chair, so I cannot control what the chair might decide to push forward. But certainly the conversation has been that vote needs to give commissioners time to go back to their counties and talk with their fellow commissioners as votes will be cast at some point in the future. I do not believe it will be this Friday. I've certainly kicked and screamed and said it can't be this Friday. I am in conversation with my superintendents to make sure that we know the full impacts before we would cast our vote and essentially put our approval behind an opportunity. We need to know it's both positive impacts and potential negative unintended impacts. So I do not believe it's planned for Friday.
Okay, well, thank you. I hope not, because as you said, one of the options, maybe the preferred option, affects the schools, or could affect the schools significantly, and I'm not as familiar with school finance as I used to be, so maybe you could bring that, or I had thought when you and I talked very briefly, maybe we could ask the superintendents or their financial people to come to a work session after a regular meeting and talk about school finance for 30 minutes. That would help educate us who will be asked to find a way forward, and recognizing the legislature has the last say, but it's pretty complex stuff, and some things would affect some of our school districts here in Tillamook County, so I have a need to know more.
Agreed, Commissioner. And in my conversation with the superintendents, their request was, since they are not currently in county, 2 of the 3 are not currently in county, that we hold that off for a couple of weeks until they can get back, work with their financial people, and be prepared to be in front of us.
Good,
so that work is underway. It's just taking a little longer. Yeah, taking a little longer than we might have hoped due to summer.
All right, thank you. Anything else, Commissioner?
I don't think so. I think that takes care of it.
All right. Well, I will read the announcements. The board briefing scheduled for today, Wednesday, June 26, 2024 at 2 p.m. has been canceled. The commissioners will hold a wastewater utility workshop on Thursday, June 27th, 2024 at 9 a.m. The workshop will be held in the Commissioners' Meeting Room 105 in the Tillamook County Courthouse, 201 Laurel Avenue in Tillamook. The teleconference number is 971-254-3149, conference ID 173001-859#. The Commissioners will hold an executive session on Monday, July 1st, 2024 at 2 p.m. pursuant to ORS 192.660, Sub 2, Sub I, to review and evaluate the employment-related performance of the Chief Executive Officer of any public body, a public officer, employee, or staff member who does not request an open hearing. The executive session will be held in the Commissioners' Meeting Room 106 at the Tillamook County Courthouse, again 201 Laurel Avenue in Tillamook. The executive session is not open to the public. Independence Day is an observed holiday for the county and the Oregon State Circuit Court. All county offices in the Tillamook County Courthouse and the Tillamook County Library, administrative offices in the Jail and Justice Facility, Public Works Department, Department of Community Development, Surveyor's Office, and the Health and Human Services Department and clinics, and the State Circuit Court will be closed on Thursday, July 4th, 2024. And with that, we are adjourned at 11:29 a.m. Okay. Okay. That's okay. Yeah, yeah. Well, you caught it. Yeah, and you're right. Your mind self-corrects. Yeah. Thank you, Bill.
Welcome.